Thank you all for tuning into the talk show today. I am so honored by the guest that is gracing our presence. We have Arlin Sorensen, and if you don't know Arlin, you absolutely should. Not only is he a channel legend, but he is the VP of Ecosystem Evangelism over at ConnectWise. So Arlin, thank you for joining us today.
It is great to be with you.
It is great to have you. And I'm so excited about today's topic. So when we were thinking this through, it really came about because of partner questions. So a lot of times the talk show topics are based on what partners want to know and what they want to talk about and what they're asking. So today we are going to dig into peer groups and the importance of peer groups and really why you should be tagging into them if you're not already. So Arlin, I know that you're obviously a huge part of not only creation of peer groups in our space, but it's been a huge piece of your business and your business growth. So start us back in the beginning a little bit. Pre-HTG days, start us back when peer groups really started to become something important to you, and take us through a story time a little bit.
Sure. I started my IT company back in 1985, and running an IT company, it's a lonely place to be. And I grew the company slowly over the late 80s, early 90s, and 95 was a big year as Windows 95 came to market, and we went from 5 to 13 employees that year, and it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do now?
Right.
And that's when I began to look around for some way to get some perspective from others, and I got involved with some of the distribution affinity groups, but I also ran into a peer group that Steve Bowser was leading at the time, and it was actually in it with Arnie and David Bellini during the late 90s. And it was a very helpful thing because we actually got to begin to see what good looked like. We were benchmarking our data, we were comparing things together, and that was a really useful experience.
Was it just organically brought together, or what was that peer group?
No, Steve Bowser ran True Profits groups, and he had a couple of those in the works going on, and so I was in that group for a couple years, but it was very, very focused on financial performance and growth. And my vision of what needed to happen in peer groups was a broader perspective, and so I decided that I would put together a group in 2000 of peers and really involve life and leadership and legacy as part of that discussion, not just how we were doing financially. And, we were going through a tough time coming out of Y2K. And in April of 2000, I had way too many people. We had grown by then. I had 36 people. I had work for about 20, and it was like, what are we going to do? And so actually one of my employees said, we need to talk to some other partners and just see what's going on out there. Where is Y2K and where is the opportunity? And we did that. We called 3 other Iowa dealers and said, can we just get together and sit down and talk about what's going on? And they all agreed. We met in Des Moines for a day. And that reinvigorated my desire to spend time with peers. And we started a group then, and I had no desire or interest in being more than one group. Just let's get together a group that can help us get to the next level. And that's what we had for 5 years. From 2000 to 2005, we had one group. We grew it to 12 members. We said, that's it. But every time I went to an event, there was people saying, okay, I hear about this thing. I want in. Let me in. And I would keep saying, nope, can't deal with more than 12. So we took a wait list, and pretty soon by the end of 2005, we had over 30 companies on the waiting list, and decided then that, okay, maybe we can have a second group. And then it was a third group. And then in 2007, we exploded to 10 groups, and then in 2008 we went to 20, and it just kind of took a life of its own. And at that point, my executive team at HTS, my IT company, was doing all the facilitation, and they put their hands up and said,
it's too
okay,
much.
you got to stop. We got a day job we got to do, and you got us flying all over the country doing facilitation. So that's when HTG had to really become a company that had staff, and we put together a framework and did the things we needed to do to scale.
Now, that was all organic growth too, wasn't it? It was just word of mouth, others finding out and wanting to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was mostly events, I would present at different SMB events, and people would hear about it and want to get involved.
Now talk a little bit about the different things that you did or that you found out. So there was the one group that you were part of that you really realized at that time, which might not be that different than what's going on right now, right? A lot of partners are looking at their business going, how do we sustain what we've got going on? They might be looking around like you did then saying, I've got way too many team members and I've got to really figure this out. Now, what was it about that group then? Like, what was it that helped you and what did you do to kind of get through that? I'm going a little off topic, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So, what happened in 2000 is I had to downsize from 36 to 25, and I had never let anybody go in my life. We were on the slow growth path, and I didn't even know how to fire somebody.
Right. You never had to do it.
I didn't want to think about it being a firing. It was just, I can't afford to pay you anymore. And I know you don't want to come to work for free. So, but our peers helped us figure out that it wasn't just us, it was an industry. Y2K missed Iowa completely. So there was no work, and it wasn't going to just show up magically. So that allowed us to make a really hard decision much quicker than we would have done on our own.
Okay.
And that's definitely one of the things that peer groups do is they assure the decision-making process. When you hear others in the same kind of position and saying, this is what's got to happen, you go home and do those things. So
I love that.
That was huge.
I love that. I think that point in itself is so dramatic when it comes to being an entrepreneur. In the beginning you shared that it's lonely, right? It's always lonely being at the top, particularly inside of a small growing business, and it's you and maybe a couple others around the table in the very beginning that are making any of these decisions. So a lot of it is what you feel, what you think based on your experience, all of that. And so particularly in our space where groups like yours, like HTG was and continues to evolve, is going, okay, I'm not going to just a peer group or a business group or a chambers group locally. I'm going to mix with those who are literally running businesses very similar to my own and see what works for them. And I think that confidence that you mentioned, that is so beautiful to feel when you're in those roles, because you don't typically get that. You can't have that reassurance. It doesn't really typically exist for entrepreneurs anyways. So when you can turn to someone and say, what did you do? How did the story play out? Not what do you think I should do? What happened when you did it?
Exactly.
And how it's going to look for me is really big. So along with that, what would you say if a partner says, I'm not really in any peer groups now. I get that you say it helps with decision making. What are some of the other huge takeaways that you have learned and that you also implemented in HTG to change the lives of these business owners?
Well, one of the first lessons I got revolved around not being able to see the forest for the trees. So in the late 90s and early 2000s, we took the approach that we didn't really need to build a sales team. We were going to take the market by great service delivery. And that did us well until we got to a plateau of about $4 million, and we could not figure out how to grow.
Get past it.
And I still vividly recall telling my team that we were never going to have salespeople. We were going to do it a different way. And I ate those words in 2002 when I had a group of peers come in and do a SWOT analysis of our company to help me figure out why can't we grow any further. And they basically took me out behind the shed and slapped me around and said, right. You got to have salespeople. You got to have a sales engine. You got to market stuff. You got to actually do these things. And that really helped our business significantly to turn a corner. It was a hard corner for me to accept because I came up on the technical side. I didn't think we needed sales, but we did. And if it hadn't been for peers, we probably would have floundered for a lot longer. But they were able to give me insight and some accountability. And that's probably one of the biggest things about a peer group, Andra, is
that accountability.
When you're an owner, you don't really report to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you do what you want to do when you want to do it, if you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that there's a lot of things that don't get done because they aren't things we want to do, but they're really
Absolutely.
important. And so the peer group provides a level of accountability. You can't come to a meeting and you know, BS your way through because everybody else already has tried that. And
Mm-hmm.
they know your tricks, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they've done them. Um, so the accountability is a huge part of it. Benchmarking is huge, obviously, because
Yep.
it tells us what good looks like. And that's probably one of the funnest part of a brand new group. They all come in thinking they're doing really good until they
Mm-hmm.
actually see the numbers
Mm-hmm.
and they understand that, well, I'm doing okay, but I can do better. I can do a lot better. And,
Definitely.
you know, so it gives you kind of a direction to go and can specifically show you the areas that you need to tweak and tune up. So that's really helpful.
I think that the looking at your peers and getting that, it's a mirror, right? Is what you're saying. You're saying, hey, everyone comes in thinking that they're the best, and again, they're not answering to anyone. So everyone is their own personal trainer, right? They're all gonna think
Yep.
they're doing really great, and then they start talking with others. And I think one of the really cool things too that you're tagging into is that you're teaching up and you're and down, and you're learning up and down. And so those that are larger than you can learn from, and then those two that are smaller are learning from you too. And so it's amazing how it all works together, and you can help in each other's successes, which I think is really neat. So one of the things that you were just mentioning, I think is important, because this is something that I feel, and in a lot of the MSP conversations that we have, I think often is what holds partners back from being in a group such as a peer group, is the fear of accountability. So because you do things, you mentioned you ate those words, right? So
Yep.
it probably didn't taste that good. And I
Nope.
think the fear of having to eat words that you know are not going to taste good, or knowing very well that you actually know before going into a peer group that you're not perfect and you don't want anyone to see, your fear of people knowing how imperfect you are is more prominent in you than your desire to succeed. And I think that is something huge that holds back partners from actually getting to that next level. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's no question that nobody wants to walk into a situation where they can't, you know, look good and defend what they've done and all those kind of things. And so, you know, part of the peer experience is building those relationships where it's safe, number one,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that whatever feedback you get is coming from the right place from those around you. You know, it's the go-giver mentality. It's the
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help you because I know that as I do that, everybody else is going to help me, and we all leave much better than when we got here. You know,
Definitely.
that's a foundational part of it. But what I see so often is that partners haven't defined what success really means, particularly around legacy and
Mm-hmm.
what they're trying to achieve from an end goal
Yes.
perspective. And you know, the assumption that so many small business owners make is that if they just get up and work hard every day, someday somebody's going to write them a check and they're going to get everything they need to live the life they want to live. And
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you from being with lots and lots of partners that are getting out of their business, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
You have to build real business value. You have to have a plan. You got to know what you're trying to accomplish. And, uh, and then the group can help hold you accountable so you take steps to get there. But if you don't know where you're going, then, you know, any road will work.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it won't end up where you want to end up.
Absolutely. No, and it's something that sounds so 101, but is often just breezed by, and no one really thinks about it. Everyone just goes from day to day to day, and the launching of the business or the still being in business is the success right now, versus the how do we get to where we're going and reverse engineering into that. And so I love that, because I do think that peer groups are a great way to do that. And sometimes too, being in the peer group to say, hey, I don't really know what success looks like. What have you done? Or what was success for you, or you, or you? Help me map out to see what maybe I think success is going to be. So no, I think that is amazing. Now, are there things that, aside from the getting into sales, right, to get over that next hump, that you wouldn't have done had you not been in a peer group? What other things came out of peer groups that you would have just never put into play?
Well, certainly our growth in the 2003 to 2012 was driven by M&A. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, the ability to come to a trusted group of peers and talk about the M&A process, which I had never done before. So I could learn some of the pitfalls that I needed to avoid, was hugely important. We leveraged that group to help look at potential acquisition targets and give us feedback, because when you're in a growth mindset, every deal looks like a brilliant deal, but I can assure you not every deal is a brilliant deal. So having somebody, again, that sits in the same seat as you do and say, what would you acquire this company, and have a group of them say, no, this would be a bad thing.
Absolutely.
It was hard for me to walk away, but it was really helpful to have those peers that I could depend on. So that was really important.
And to not be looking at it emotionally, because when you're in the deal, it's so emotional. Or especially if you see, a lot of companies, as you mentioned, are looking to be acquired over the next 3 to 5 years. And it can get so emotional that when you're right there, or you see a check, or you understand what it will look like to be acquired, it's one of those things that, okay, wait, time out. You've got your team behind you, your peers behind you going, don't forget about this, look at this, like, let's be non-emotional about it. And I do think that that's a huge asset when going into situations like that, because many times too, you can't have those conversations with your team. Often it's your CPA, your finance person in-house, if you have one, and then who else is there to chat with? No one. So other than your wife and your kids and everyone else, but in the business. And so I think that's having that base is awesome. Now, what about camaraderie? Talk me through that. Do you have some of your best friends in the peer groups as well?
Absolutely. They're lifelong friends, right? And you go deep with people in a trusted environment. You get to know their families, you get to know their businesses, and key people in those. And yeah, they're lifelong friends. We haven't been in groups together with some of them for 10, 15 years, but I still am connected with them and check in with them and watch what they're doing. And so it builds your circle of friends and influence and all those things. And it's a powerful, powerful way to really have a support structure. That's one of the things I find as I work with a lot of small business owners. They really don't have a support structure around them. And, so it's lonely as a leader, but, they don't have even people that they can lean out and get help from. And, that was part of what we built also with Hands That Give, as a mechanism to help support folks in times of need. And, all that kind of connectivity really just builds the bond of what happens within groups. And so
it's invaluable. It truly is invaluable. And once that fear or that vulnerability is instilled in a person to where they feel comfortable enough, once you pass that, it's priceless what happens and how it can be so helpful to your business. Now, talk a little bit about what happened with HTG and what that world looks like now.
So, we grew HTG up until 2018, and we were at a decision point where we were doing a lot of good things for about 400 companies, and we knew if we were going to try to scale it to a bigger level, it was going to take a significant influx of money and people, and so our leadership team got together, sat down and said, do we want to make that kind of investment, or do we want to find a partner that we can work with and leverage somebody that's got a lot more resources and reach than we do? And I had conversations off and on with Arnie Bellini for a number of years, but the timing was right. We had another conversation. I said, we love what we do. We want to do more of it.
Absolutely.
We need a partner that can take us there. And so January of 2018, we sold HTG to ConnectWise and became part of that organization. And, going from 27 people when we arrived to now over 2,000 colleagues worldwide, it's a different world for sure. But, the potential that we have now is just exponentially bigger than what we had before.
Definitely. And I think that too is a testament to the value on the flip side of peer groups and community and connectivity between businesses, that because it's sticky and because it's a group that stays joined together, that's valuable to companies like a ConnectWise where you can tag into and build out a community. And so I think that is awesome. Now do a plug for your book. I don't know, how many have read your book or what your book sales are like, but it's amazing. And I want to share a little bit about it.
Part of what we've done is build a framework for success. And because we know that most small business owners don't necessarily plan out what their future is going to look like, we've built this workbook to walk through the 4 plans that we think everybody should have. Starts with a legacy plan.
Mm-hmm.
What's your personal goals in life? What do you want to accomplish? And what's the goals for your business? What's the legacy of your business look like? Those are financial things, but there's a lot of tactical things, legal
Mm-hmm.
things that are part of that process. And then that's the big picture goal, right? And then within that, we have 3 annual plans.
Mm-hmm.
The business plan, obviously, which is what are we going to do this year in our business that'll move us toward that legacy. A life plan, which is what are we going to do this year to move us toward the life objectives of our legacy. And then
Mm-hmm.
a leadership plan, which spans both of those areas. What am I going to do to grow my leadership skills and become a better leader? And how am I going to invest in the people around me in my business or in my personal life to help them raise their leadership skills? And those things are kind of foundational to helping people stay on a path and move forward. And where they really work in a peer group is, if I know what your plan is and I see you wandering off into the weeds, I can say, whoa, time out. That's not what you said you were going to accomplish this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives the group the ability to really help keep goals in line, keep people focused on the right things, and ultimately help them get there. That's the best part of my job today, is when people are ready to exit and they look at where they're at and they say, I can't believe I got to this
Mm-hmm.
point. I actually am hitting the goals that I've set
Mm-hmm.
because we had a plan. The peer groups kept us on course, and it really works. And planning will work. You got to do the work to plan it, but then
Absolutely.
you need help staying the course. And that's where peer groups are so important.
I love that. Now, how would you, if we've got partners sitting out there that are tuning in right now thinking, okay, maybe I should jump into a peer group. What do you have to say to them? Why is now the time to join? And then what would you suggest of them? Or maybe how do they become a part of your particular group?
Well, I would say right now, there's never been a time that you've needed a peer group more than right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we thought was predictable, not so much. And so being able to sit down with a group of trusted peers and saying, what's going on in your patch and how are you dealing with, COVID in terms of your clients, in terms of your staff, in terms of, your kids. The emotional stress of what we're going through right now is significant, and you need people around you to help you navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
So the timing is extremely important right now, more than ever, to have peers around you. The reality is, from a Evolve perspective now, we've got multiple programs now that are targeted at different needs that partners may have for a peer group. We have a pure online version of the program that meets monthly, designed for folks that are smaller or don't necessarily want to travel on a regular basis to our
Mm-hmm.
meetings. Even though all of them are virtual today, we will come back to those face-to-face quarterly meetings at some point. So we have that program in place. We have our Evolve 2 program, which is kind of the starter package, I guess you'd say, a one-year program to get your plans in order, to really prepare you to fit into the Evolve 3 face-to-face peer groups. So it's a 3-step, 3-layer approach.
I think that's great.
And so there's something for everybody. We also have a strong program called Service Exec Groups, which are designed for service leaders in companies. And we're starting to build those programs out so that we can surround that owner with strong leaders in his company. And so we have CFO groups now. We've got the SEPG peer groups for service. We've got our sales group that's going to be coming online. We've got an M&A group. We've got groups that cover a lot of different things. And so there's a place for you to fit in wherever you'd like.
I think that's a great point, because fitting in, it can be intimidating to maybe someone who's introverted. I don't really know if I want to get into a group of people, or I don't really know if I like things like that. But if you have something to fit everyone's needs, that's so incredibly important. And there's smaller groups too, and there's larger experiences, which, it's something for everyone. Now, how do they get in touch if they're interested?
Jody Hicks is our contact person, so it's jdhicks@connectwise.com, or they can go to the website, and there's a link there on the ConnectWise IT Nation website. Or they can always reach out to me. I'll certainly connect them and get them involved. There's nothing I'd rather do than get more and more people connected, because that raises everybody up and helps us all to be more successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Arlin, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you. Any last parting words you want to give or share with any partner tuning in?
One of the things I hear all the time is, I've been thinking about this for years. Don't just think about it. That won't change anything. You got to take action. So if you're interested, get after it, sign up. You got to execute.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it here, folks. Arlin says, get in the game, and you will not regret it. So thank you, Arlin, for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.